it was not only the upheaval of all the society, but it was the church as well. The church was engulfed in and there was a great sentiment of nationalism, and the church was nationalized as well, so that they wanted to have a separate church that would not be dependent on Rome. And they seized all the property belonging to the church, and also all the priests and bishops became employees of the state, but they had to take an oath of fidelity to the national church. And there was a date to that. First they started with only those who had important offices, and then it was everybody. Then there was a date set that if past that date, all those who had refused to swear, they called them the non-juring priests, the non-swearing, would not swear allegiance to would be either guillotined or deported to the penal colony of French Guiana in South America. Charles Nicolas was a young priest of 26 years old, teaching at the seminary in Lisieux, the same of where St. Therese later lived. We had the seminaries at the college there right from the time of St. John Eudes. And they seized the building, they closed the place, and he went back to his family in Rouen, which is the northern Normandy. He was there with his family for 2 years until he was arrested, since the date came where you should have been outside of French territory or swear allegiance to the national church. And he was put in a former seminary as a prisoner with many other priests on waiting deportation. And nearly a year later, they were put on 2 boats at the La Rochelle, which is the port near there, and they waited to be deported. But the English were in the channel watching, and they couldn't get time to leave, so they were on those floating prisons. And gradually, they were terribly ill-nourished, sometimes starved, with also disease and scurvy and etc. So it started gradually to 3 to 4 of them would die every day. And they would go and bury them. They would go 2 soldiers with 4 of the prisoners to take the bodies to a little island of Aix in the port to bury them. Charles Nicolas, and they were not totally forbidden to say any prayers or to do any blessing or anything. They were treated brutally, and he lasted, having been weakened for a year of jail before, he lasted 3 months and was buried on the Isle of Aix. He was 31 years old. There were, in the 2 boats, more than 800, and I'm not sure, I forgot my notes, so 27 or something like that. Only about 250 survived. But among those, everybody was, they were all either brothers, monks, or priests. But the church, John Paul canonized, beatified 64 of them that he researched and were sure that they were people who had risked their life for their faith. Some others have been taken in it because for different reasons. But anyway, 64 of them, and Charles Nicolas Hansen was one of them. There we have 3 others that we celebrate with another group that was massacred on September 2nd and 3rd. But today we remember faithfulness to the church, to the faithfulness to the teaching, but also the unity of the church, for which Charles Nicolas gave his life. In the gospel today, we see also in the first reading about, I always like this passage from the book of Kings, where Elijah has come into here, Elijah is listening, and that the voice of God is not in the earthquake. By the way, I don't know if you felt it, but woke up at 1:20 or something this morning. But God was not in the earthquake, it was not in the hurricane that fell today, it wasn't the whisper of the wind. So it's in simple things that invite us to search for the presence of God in the things of everyday life, and it's how we become present to others also. And the Lord invites us in the gospel to take away from our life the temptation, the things that cause us to stumble. And sometimes we know ahead of time what is going to be the cause of our fall, or our gossip, or our bad action. And the Lord invites us to be aware of them and to remove them before we have to stumble.